Hello, my friends. This is Prof and Dev Play Games extra episode number 6. This is the Prof coming to you alone again here because I've got some thoughts I want to share about Watch Dogs 2. The Dev is out being a dev, working hard, making games, but I've got a little bit of a break, so I'm writing down some thoughts on some games. Games that I feel like aren't getting enough attention. I could write a review of Uncharted 4, for example, but it's really soaking up the accolades right now, so I kind of want to touch on a game that a lot of people aren't playing, it seems like, but they should be because it's a great game. And this is Watch Dogs 2. I did a little write-up about Watch Dogs 2 that I wanted to share with you. It's sort of an audio game review. Scoreless. I don't like to score reviews. It's a great game. So I felt like with Watch Dogs 2, it was a year credited with good to great games, and Watch Dogs 2 exemplified what a good to great game actually was. It had engaging gameplay, interesting open world, decent story, a fairly compelling multiplayer mode, entertaining characters, and a gameplay loop that keeps players saying just one more mission, which is exactly what happened to me. In my view, Watch Dogs 2 is an open world action-adventure puzzle game and really, really fun. More often than not, when I finished a mission, especially early when I didn't have my skill tree totally filled up, my heart was thumping in my chest. I would enter the mission or the scenario with some sort of plan in mind and then really fuck it up somehow and be forced to rewrite the script that I had in my head. Usually those sequences were tense and exciting and left me with that thumping heart. For example, there was one time when I invaded Alcatraz. The goal was to infiltrate the Rock and release an informant who had been kidnapped and locked in a cell in Alcatraz, and then get myself off the Rock without dying. The prison was crawling with enemies, so it was really hard to stealth my way in and stun gun or melee a few of the enemies, which I like to do because I usually try to do no-kill runs, then do the deed and dissolve into the shadows and escape, which is how I like to do things. I tried it anyways, and 3 times I ended up getting the informant out of the cell, but died in a hail of gunfire, basically, because I hadn't been able to neutralize enough of the guards, and then more guards ended up showing up that I didn't know were there. So the 4th time I managed to get back onto the roof of the prison, and then I was beset by a new mob of guards. I had planned for an escape where I ran over the edge of the roof and kind of jumped onto the ground and flew into the water and swam away. Sometimes I like to end the mission by swimming away because it tended to be a way to get away from the gunfire that was coming at me. But a ton of guards jumped onto the roof and blocked my path, so I had to use my hacker vision while dodging a bunch of bullets to see how I could get out of there. And I ended up seeing a scaffold that I could hack to reach the ground. So I ran toward it, got myself to ground level, and booked it for the docks. But as I got to the dock, more new guards burst in my path, and I had to course correct again without dying. So I died, I had to go back and start the whole thing all over again. So I forgot about the boat, and I jumped into the water and tried to swim. But as I dove off the deck, I kind of smashed into some inanimate object, and I couldn't swim away. When I surfaced, avoiding the bullets again, I was face to face with a different boat that I hadn't seen earlier, so I quickly climbed aboard and threw the throttle open and just jammed out of there and aimed for safe harbor. What it felt like to me was I had basically taken part in an action movie of my own choosing. You know, the game developers had crafted some sort of situation for the player. They told me, here's the thing you need to do. You need to get this guy out of Alcatraz and get out alive. But they didn't tell me how to do it, and there wasn't like a linear path or a specific way that I had to do it. They just gave me a lot of tools and said, have fun. And I did. You know, I had a blast doing it over and over again. It was basically solving a puzzle over and over again. And it's, you know, the way that you could beat it is basically the same way every time. You can use the same tools every single time, but you kind of make your own fun by trying to defeat the challenge in different ways and not doing the same thing over and over again. For people who are doing the same thing over and over again and holding that against the game, I would say that's really on the player. It's up to the player to use all of the different tools the game is allowing you to use and not just cheese or try to break the game. Watch Dogs 2 to me was a sandbox of situations which inspired quick thinking and generated a ton of fun. You know, I could have gone in guns blazing probably every single time because I tried to do no-kill runs. I could have gone in with my guns and found greater success than my stealth drone stun gun approach, but I don't think the game would have been as fun for me. But it's great because people who really prefer the guns blazing approach can still have that experience with this game. Watch Dogs 2 seems to cater to many different gamers' desired playstyles, all within one game. To complete a mission, you can use stealth, you can use guns or stun guns or melee, you can bring in gang fighters or cops, or you can make a hybrid plan using several of those ideas. Basically, you just pick your poison and you tear it up. The story focuses on big corporations like Google, Facebook, defense contractors, and what they do with your data. The protagonists of the game, which people know, that's a hacker group called DedSec, and they kind of are seemingly modeled off of the previous hacker group Anonymous. And they use their tech prowess to stick it to the man or the tech man and protect the little people. The story provides enough of a schema for your missions to make sense, but it's not so pervasive that it boxes in what type of player you should be. But it does feel a little weird to play a social justice warrior with a rocket launcher who has no problem ending a mission with a body count. So there's some cognitive dissonance there. The social justice aspect is actually what drew me to Watch Dogs 2 in the first place, which was definitely not a game that was on my radar in 2016. Several podcasts I listened to in November kept discussing what an underrated, under-the-radar gem Watch Dogs 2 was, and one fellow from IGN referred to it as an SJW GTA. Since I'm liberal and I side with people who are labeled derisively as SJWs, one of my church's missions is to fight for social justice, so I'm definitely on board with that cause. I was definitely into checking out the game. So when I heard the game referred to in that way, my interest was piqued, and having played and platinumed the game, I can see where he was coming from. In GTA, you're the criminal and you do some pretty shitty things. In Watch Dogs 2, you can commit some similar crimes, though not the more grotesque from GTA 5 or GTA 4 or 3. But you're doing it for the cause of justice, supposedly. There are some parallels between the two games, but it's worth noting that I was compelled to complete Watch Dogs 2, but I couldn't get more than a few hours into GTA before moving on to something else. The online multiplayer from Watch Dogs 2 is something else to note. I didn't think I'd really care about it. I don't really do a lot of online multiplayer, but I really enjoyed what I played of this. It was seamless. You kind of stumble across multiplayer opportunities like co-op missions or hacking invasions or bounty hunts. And you can mainly choose to engage or ignore, except for when you're being hacked by another player or if your notoriety level is so high with the cops that it brings other players into your game world to track you down and kill you. But if you want to give it a whirl, you can link up with multiplayer nodes on the map or pull out your in-game cell phone, which I thought was a really smart piece of UI, by the way, and seek out multiplayer opportunities. And if you're going to platinum the game, you have to get 3 multiplayer trophies, which can be a bit of a bear. So you do have to play around with the multiplayer a little bit. Those 3 trophies probably took me a total of 2 hours to get. So it's not too much, but if you're not really into the multiplayer, it is a bit of a bear. The Hacking Invasion multiplayer takes a few cues from the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood multiplayer that my podcast partner, the Dev, told me about. In the multiplayer experience, players hunt each other down, trying to blend in with the NPC crowd as best that they can. And the basic framework appears in this part of Watch Dogs 2 online multiplayer, that idea. Basically, you hide in another player's game world, hack them, and blend in well enough to ensure they don't pick you out of the crowd, which will basically end the hacking invasion and you have to run away. It really was heart-pounding stuff for me, especially when I needed to successfully invade someone to get that platinum trophy. And it took me, I think, 15 tries. I was apparently really bad at it, but I eventually found someone who was worse than me. Ubisoft, to its credit, listened to what the community disliked about Watch Dogs and seemed to approach Watch Dogs 2 with the intention of building the game that the community seemed to want. In doing so, they've created an engaging, fun, and vibrant open world to explore, something that I didn't think would happen in this game, to be honest. And recently there was some news that Ubisoft wants to kind of rely less on scripted stories in their games and give players more of a sandbox to explore where they quote-unquote create their own story. Well, with Watch Dogs 2, it seems like Ubisoft took a step in that direction. Not all the way. They have kind of one foot in the script and one foot in the open sandbox. Time will tell if that's the right direction for Ubisoft to go in, but their foray into a game where players can quote-unquote create their own story here in Watch Dogs 2 certainly worked for me and made for one of the most fun games I played this year. So if you haven't had a chance to play Watch Dogs 2, you're someone who really didn't like Watch Dogs and I really had no interest in checking it out, the sequel, because you didn't like the first one. You should really, watch a few videos at least. Check out a few write-ups of Watch Dogs 2 and see what they did this time, because it's quite a bit different and pretty inventive in some places and overall very engaging. And it's also got a pretty easy platinum. So overall, I really enjoyed this game, one of my top games of 2016. And I hope that you'll give it a try. So thanks for tuning in to this special extra episode of Prof and Dev Play Games. We're here every Monday morning. We got our regular podcast with the Dev and I talking about gaming news and the games we're playing. So we hope you'll come back and check it out. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Prof Plays Games, and my friend Anthony is at SummerSpeak. We hope to hear from you soon. Talk to you later.